Hey everybody, welcome to ChinFat. In this episode, I'm going to be going over how to do an assembly edit. That is getting started editing, basically. Last episode, I did showing you how to sync video and audio footage together and merge them together into one file so it can be prepped for the editor, so an editor can sit down and just start editing. Historically, there have been 3 steps of editing that have been broken down into what they call a rough cut, a working cut, and a final cut. So the rough cut is basically where you cut it as best you can, and then you think that it might be good, but then you show it to the director, then the director will sit down with the editor and make changes and work on getting it to what's called a working cut. The working cut is where it's finalized enough, the director's approved of it, that it can go to sound mix and then go to color grading as well. Then when everything comes back and they have the sound mix done and the color grade done, the director can watch through it again, and then if there's any changes that need to be made from that then on, the changes will be made and they'll work out what's called a final cut. And the final cut is when you're finished, of course. There's actually kind of a preliminary step that leads into that is kind of commonly known as an assembly cut. That's what we're going to be kind of going over today. And that's just basically going to be looking at your footage, finding out what shots you want to put in your timeline, what shots you want to put in order in your timeline, what portion of the shots you want to put in order in your timeline to get kind of a basic story told before you start working on the rough cut, which is basically where you're fine-tuning your assembly cut. So let's go through that step right here. I'm going to open it. I've got my synced footage here in my Scene 1 edit. I'm going to open that up. I'm going to move my mouse over this window and I'm going to hit the tilde key. The tilde key will take this full screen, and now I can look at my footage and work with my footage here. A couple of things that I want to do. First of all, I want to arrange my list view here. This is called list view. This is called icon view here at the bottom, and then down here is called list view. And this is my list view here. The icon view uses arrangements that are based off the list view arrangements here, because we've got all these arrangement tabs at the top. You can tell it to arrange by time codes. You can tell it to arrange by duration of the clip. You can have it arranged by frame rate. I'm going to arrange this footage based on the name here. So name with the arrow pointing up, that basically, if you put it down, that reverses it from in alphanumerical order backwards, and the arrow up will do it in alphanumerical order from the first things that were shot to the very end here. So now that I've got that, we can go over to our icon view, and we can tell it to use the list view sort to sort these icons. So these are basically out of order here. I've got 1G, take 2, then Scene 1, take 1, where this should be first. So what's going on is this is, if you go down to this little sort icons tab, pull this up. Right now it's under user order. So whatever order, this goes, by the way, from left to right as a row, and then it drops down and goes to the next row, left to right. That's the order that these are ordered in here. So I'm going to go down here and we're going to tell it to use the list view sort with it, which is alphanumerical by name. And there we go. Now we've got everything in order. So 1, take 1, Scene 1, take 2, Scene 1, take 3, Scene 1 alpha, take 1, and so on until we get to the end. So you go all the way to the right, come back down here, and then it goes from left to right again. I am also going to grab my height adjustment here for my icons and just get them a bit bigger so I can see pretty much all my footage here in one big window. It's easy to see them. It's easy to see the scene numbers. One thing that I also like, that I've got this turned off by default, but you've got this little 3-line menu tab, pull down tab right here. That right now my hover scrub is turned off. By default, it is turned on. And you can change that by hitting Shift H is the shortcut. Now it is turned off. I just hit Shift H, and now it is turned off, and Shift H again will turn that back on. Let's go take a look. See, and now it's turned back on. So that's the shortcut. So right now I'm going to do Shift H, turn my hover scrub off, because this is what happens with hover. Sorry, now turn it back on, Shift H. This is what happens if I'm trying to look at the numbers here. I'm just skimming through it. It starts skimming through. It gets rid of that opening slate where the name of the clip is gone, and I kind of don't like that. So I don't like hover scrub when I'm just getting started here. So I am going to turn that off, so it just stays right on the first frame of each recording here. So Shift H, and now everything, the very first frame that I see of everything is a slate. It was showing the name of the clip. So one thing that I would do as an editor, the very first thing that I do after I get everything organized is you want to read the scene, the page of scripts that you're going to be editing. So I've got that here. I'm not going to read it to you guys, but you guys can find these items. I've got the footage, I've got the compressed footage, and I've got the script inside of the exercise files, and you'll find a link of that in the description. But here's the script right here. This is just basically a page and a half. So, and that's the entire movie. It's just a short film. It's about a 1.5-minute short film. But you can read through this screenplay to see how things are going to play out from beginning to end and be familiar with that. Another way of figuring out what happens in the scene is by watching the master shot. The master shot, and we've got the script supervisor sheets here that were done on set while the movie was being shot. We have a line script here, and this line script basically shows coverage. It shows coverage of the footage that was shot on set. It's got the scene numbers right here. It's got scene right here. It's got scene number 1, and it tells me that it's the master shot. Usually the master shot spans the entire scene, but this one they did not have there's one part where the mother shows up at the end, and they did not shoot the master shot. They shot a different master shot for that. So this scene goes through. You'll see the scene starts here and goes and records pretty much through all the first page. And then it says S1 continue. It continues to the next page. S1 continues. So this keeps going. You got this arrow pointing down, this arrow pointing up, which means this S1 is the same master shot going down, and then it ends before the scene ends. So this master shot, typically a master shot will cover the entire scene. This one does not. It covers most of the scene, and then they've got a new scene here, this SG1 that finishes the scene. So scene 1 is the one that I want. And by the way, I can go to the continuity log, and this will show me scene number 1 here. The continuity log is something that the script supervisor fills out as well as it's being shot. And they've written down that scene 1 had 3 takes. It did take 1, take 2, take 3. That means they record, and then they'll cut the shot, and then they'll go back to the beginning and shoot it again and again until they get it all right. And then it's got a description here. There's the time. It's got the time. It's got the time right there. It's got the description over here on this side. It mentions that it's a master shot, and it's a wide shot, and then the camera dollies from wide to a medium shot, and then pans from the dad to the baby monitor. So it gives a description of what happens in that shot, but we can basically go to the scene and we can watch that and see what happens. I'm going to double click on scene 1, take 3. By the way, in this take 3 is circled, which means that is the good take. And then they check mark this if they have sound, and they do have sound in some instances, like down here, 1C, take 1 has no sound, scene 1E, scene 1E, take 1 has no sound as well. So let's go back to our clip here. And after this light here, so I've got the good take. Scene 1, take 3 is the good take. I'm going to forward through this by hitting the letters. I got J, K, and L. J is rewind, K is stop, and L is forward. And if you hit L a bunch of times, it'll go faster and faster. If you hit J a bunch of times, it will go faster and faster in reverse. So I'm going to hit L, 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 and go fast and stop. And I'm going to listen for the director, where the director yells action. So right there sounds like I hear an and action. And let's see if I'm right there. I'm going to press play here.
And action.
So basically I can get into this and watch through the master shot to kind of see what happens here. And the camera dollies, I'm going to fast forward and just kind of watch this and fast forward here. It pans over to the baby monitor. The baby cries. He sits up and says, all right. And he sits up. And then he hears a woman's voice singing on the baby monitor. And then he says, thank you, honey, thinking that it's his wife that's singing to his baby.
Hey.
And then he lays back down, and when the dolly goes back out. So that's where it stops right there. That is the entire master shot right there. There is a small scene that happens at the end, but that's pretty much it. So normally what I would want to do is before you cut to this master shot, I probably want to go to an establishing shot if there is one. Let's go to the script supervisor continuity log and see if there is an establishing shot. And down here, they didn't put establishing shot, but this should be ES as an establishing shot. Wide angle of room, I pan across the room to reveal the dad bed. That's the establishing shot right there. But they should have put ES on that. So I'm going to look and see that take 3 is the best one. It's circled. So I'm going to go back and we're going to look at scene 1E, take 3, right there, the good take. I'm going to double click on this, load it into my source monitor, and now we're going to start editing. And also this, if you notice, the slate is closed, which means this is MOS. That means without sound. That means there's no sound. It means minus optical sound is the acronym there. So I'm going to hit L to forward, L again to forward, L faster, and wait till the camera gets framed up and starts moving. There it is, it starts the move. I'm going to hit I for endpoint. That's where I want my shot to start right there. I'm going to fade in on this moving right here. So then the camera pans. Fast forward that again, LL. And here on the final movie, they put a credit on this so that it showed the title of the movie at the very beginning. So I'm going to keep playing through this here until I want the pan to stop, like right about there. We could actually dissolve from this into the next scene. So I'm going to hit O for out point. I'm going to take that shot, and we're going to hit. So I've got my in point, I've got my out point, and it's going to drop that footage down onto the timeline when I hit the key period. Drops it in on my timeline. Comment does, and insert and period doesn't overwrite. We'll get into that later. So while I'm in my timeline here, I'm going to go Shift 3. Right now, I've got the blue line around my source window, so I'm operating out of my source window. I'm going to hit Shift 3. It jumps to my timeline, and I'm going to hit the slash above the Enter key to make this longer. That stretches everything to be seen within the viewable area here. It just zoomed up on my clip there, and I'm going to hit Shift Plus because I want to increase my track height here. Notice it brought just down video, no audio, because this one was MOS. I'm going to move over this track here, and I'm going to hold down Option. It would be Alt on a PC, and scroll up on my mouse. And it makes the track bigger. And now I got a nice big thumbnail to look at there. So let's go to the next shot that I want in here. So from here, in my timeline now, I've got this. Let's do a fade in. I'm going to hit home and go to the beginning here. And I'm going to do Command D, which should be Control D on a PC. It will add a cross dissolve right where the playhead is. So Command D adds a cross dissolve. I'm going to make this a little bit longer, stretch it out. So it's maybe, let's make it about 2 seconds. It is about 2 seconds. It's 2 seconds and 14 frames. Let's try that out, see how that works. I just play through it. It fades in and keeps panning, and then we'll have a title pop up on this. I'm not going to do the title of this episode. And as we get to the end there, I'm going to let it hit the end, and it goes to black because it's the frame after the last frame of this clip here. I'm going to move my mouse over this and hit tilde, and we're going to grab the master shot. So I want to start dollying in here. So I'm going to go to scene 1, take 1. I'm going to double click on it. I'm going to go to the beginning, hit the home key, get my fingers on JKL, and hit L. Fast forward. And I just heard the director say and action. It was really high pitched, but it sounded like it was a and action. I'm going to hit rewind, J for rewind. J again. I'm going to go faster. There she says action. Press play.
And action.
Action. So I'm going to go a little bit further and let this start dollying in. Maybe about 1 second into the dolly. Right about there. I'm going to hit I for out point. And I'm going to play this to the point where I want to do an out point. So I'll press play. Hit the space bar for play, or L. And here dolly's up to his face. Let's go a little faster. I hit L a couple times. And as the baby starts crying, it pans over to reveal the baby monitor. So maybe we could cut to a shot of the baby monitor right there, right where he grumbles a little bit because the baby's crying. And then the baby starts crying louder. So let's go O for out point there. And then I'll hit period and drop it into the timeline. I'm not my timeline, so I'll do Shift 3 to jump to my timeline. I'm going to hit the slash above the return key to look at my whole timeline. And let's see how that transition looks from here to there. That was meant to be a cross dissolve, so I'm going to arrow up and land on that edit right there. Arrowing up jumps to edits to the left. Arrow down jumps to edits to the right. And now I'm going to hit Command D, and that should have a cross dissolve. It didn't because this is selected. Somehow I have that selected. So all you have to do, you have to make sure there's nothing selected in your timeline. So I just click up here, and it deselects everything on my timeline. Another way of doing that is, if you click in a blank area, that will do that. If things are selected on your timeline right now, I just hit Command A to select everything. If you do Command Shift A, it deselects everything on your timeline. Now I do Command D, and it adds a cross dissolve. Let's see how that looks. Get a little pre-roll here. I want that maybe to be slow dissolves at the beginning. So I'm going to do a double click on this. It loads it here. I'm going to say 200. That's 2 seconds and 00 frames. I'm going to hit OK. And now it's 2 seconds long. Let's watch through it. Perfect. We'll fix the audio later. The audio just cuts in and out, but that's fine. And once again, I'm an editor too, so I'm doing the editor's job. I'm not doing the sound mix here. So he looks over, shifts a little bit in his bed, groans, and right there, and right there at the end, I'm going to put in a close-up of the baby monitor. So right now, I'm not at the end of my timeline. I can hit end and go to end, because wherever your playhead is, that's where it's going to drop in your shot. I'll move over to my project window, hit tilde, bring it full screen, and I'm not sure which one has the shot of the baby monitor, but what we can do is look at the script supervisor continuity log. And I'm looking here, and we don't have a shot of the baby monitor until right here. And this is 1F, take 1. And no sound. It has a straight line, no sound, and it's a close-up of the baby monitor for the beginning of the scene. So that's the one that we want right there. And it's 1F, take 1. So I'm going to grab 1F, take 1 right here. Once again, no sound on it at all. I'm going to hit L a few times, get fast forwarding, get ready to stop, and stop. So I want to kind of like right where this is where the baby starts screaming. So what I'm going to do is find the part where the baby monitor kind of goes crazy. I can just play through this. There it calms down a little bit. And I think right around here is where it starts screaming. Let's see. It'll hit the red. Right there. It maxes out. So that was a good spot right there. So that's what it looked like where the baby is just screaming. All they were doing was they grabbed the transmitter of the baby monitor and just started rubbing their finger on it a lot. And it made it kind of peak to the red like that. So it looks like the baby's really screaming there. So I'm going to hit I for endpoint. We'll play through this. Right there. It goes loud again. And that's good enough right there. I'm going to hit O for out point. Going to go to my timeline. My playhead is not at the end. If I want it at the end, I have to go into my timeline and make it go to the end. So I'm just going to hit the key end, and it jumps to the end of the timeline. I hit period and drop that in, and we'll see how that looks. So it's kind of moving around, and then the baby screams, and then I'm going to cut back to him reacting. So let's get back to the master shot here. Double click on this, load it, and I'm going to go to the out point and play from there. So I'm going to hit Shift O, which jumps to the out point. Shift I jumps to the end point, but I want to jump to the out point and play through this.
Louder.
And right there where he moans is what cuts back to him and his reaction. So I'm going to hit J to rewind. Right there. I for endpoint. Play through it. And the baby's still screaming.
All right.
And he yells, all right.
All right.
And sits up. And then right here, he's putting his slippers on. So that's going to be the next part here. So I'm going to rewind here a little bit. Hit O for out point. Period to drop it into the timeline. And these don't have to be perfect continuity matches and everything. Right now, like I said, we're just compiling all the footage that we want in order that we want it into the timeline. So let's get to a shot of his slippers being put on. I can see him right there, or I could even go to the script supervisor log sheet and we can find that as well. So 1C is close-up of feet and slippers. But I could clearly see that it's that one right there. So I double click, forward through it, find where he first puts his foot in. Then I heard and action. Feet come down and he puts one foot in. So I'm going to rewind that a little bit, J, and get it to maybe where his feet, just right where his main foot pops into the screen there. So I'm going to hit I for endpoint. His feet bring down 1, 2, and now O for out point. Period to drop that in. Then we're going to cut back to the master shot. And we even have some close-ups here as well. Let me hit Shift H to go to our hover scrub and we kind of look through this footage. Like right here where he sits up and we've got him saying the lines, all right, and then he says, thank you, honey, here, and then lays back down. We could cut to one of those shots here. So scene 1 Bravo was this close-up of where he sits up, kind of a profile shot here. And we've also got this, he hears the singing right there, and then the camera, and he smiles. And then the camera tilts down to reveal the baby finder with somebody singing, and we're going to insert the woman's voice in that singing. And then it goes back, and he says,
Thank you, honey.
Thank you, honey. So we're going to grab that there. So we're going to get to the beginning of this before it tilts down. Right when he smiles here, we're going to get that close-up. Well, this would be a little bit of a full close-up here. So I'm going to hit I for endpoint, play through it. I'm going to fast forward here. Goes down to the monitor, comes back to him, and he says,
Honey.
Thank you, honey. And I'm going to put O for out point. So we've got that portion of the edit right there. I'm going to hit period, drop that into the timeline. So let's see what we've got so far here. So from the beginning here, he first hears the baby singing, pans over, forward a little faster here, cut to the baby monitor, cuts back to him, moaning and groaning. He sits up and says, all right. Says, all right. And then he rubs his eye, puts on his slippers, cuts back to this, and he hears his wife singing. And see, this all feels a little too choppy to me, but I'm not going to start fine-tuning this until later. Right now, I'm just getting the shots down in the timeline, and then I can come down to the timeline, stay in the timeline, and start trimming things. But this is the first part that we're showing right here. And once you get to the end of the scene, that's basically what we would call an assembly edit. So just a quick refresher. You will choose a shot by moving over your project window. I like to hit tilde, go full screen, double-click on the shot that you want. You can use JKL to forward through it and rewind. And then once you find where you want the shot to start, like right here when he lays back down, you hit I for endpoint, you press play or L to go forward, spacebar or L. He lays down and say I want the shot to cut there. I hit O for out point, and then you make sure the playhead is where you want it on the timeline. Wherever your playhead is on the timeline, you hit period and drop it down to the timeline. And one last thing, if you want to insert a shot between two, if you find a shot that say, oh, I wanted this shot to go there, what you can do, let's say we want to take this shot and put it in between here. You can arrow up until you land to that part right there. And now you can hit comma to insert that. If you hit period, it overwrites it and eats everything in its path. If you hit comma, it inserts it between those two shots and shoves everything else down on your timeline. And that's basically how you create an assembly edit, getting prepped to do your rough cut. So thank you for watching ChinFat, and if you have any questions or comments at all, please leave them down in the comment section.